Hey everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and today we are going to talk about a Star Trek book, but this is going to be a little bit different than usual, and probably will not be interesting to anyone but me. I felt I had to make the video anyway. So, if you've been watching for any length of time, you know that I have this little book here where I make my little chicken scrawl scribbles in, and have been doing so for the past basically about 5 years. And with this last book, Q Squared, we actually finished the dang thing. And I left myself a few pages for an index here in the back, which I thought was important, right? So, in the process of doing this, going through this book, of course, it's always interesting to me because it gives me this kind of look back at what I've been doing, what I've been reading, and it kind of also gives me a path forward too. Like, all right, I've been reading a lot of this now. Maybe I should start doing some more of that. You know. So I thought it would be fun and interesting to bring you guys into the spreadsheet, right? So that you can see firsthand, what Talk About Trek has been reading over these past long 5 years here. So let's have a look. So what I did basically is I just went through the book and I wrote down the title, the whatever series it was from, and then the page number that it was on. And then once I had that, I went ahead and sorted by alpha here. We sorted by alpha. We'll do that here. Data sort A to Z. See, there we go. And then that way we were able to create our index here, right? And then we printed that out, taped that bad boy into the back of the book here. So now we have our index. So we can see, what did I think about the book, final reflection. Well, you got to look on page 125 and you can see what you thought about final reflection here. So, how wonderful, right? To have this great reference I can go back on to constantly check. But anyway, we're here to look at the spreadsheet because what I thought was interesting is that, well, first off, we have read a total of 165 books over the past 5 years. That's not too shabby, I would say. Not too shabby at all. And here we go. Let's sort now this way. Out of those 165 books, they were actually 164 books because this line is a book haul. We did have some non-Star Trek books in that time, 10. So that means we read 154 Star Trek books during that time period. So out of those 154 books, how did that break down? You ask. I'm sure you guys are all wondering, how did that break down? I can show you. It broke down thusly. Here we are. We'll zoom out a little bit so we can get a better look at the graph here. So as you can see by the graph, and we have two different graphs here we're going to be referring to in this video, we did a large majority of our reading in the TNG land here. As you can see, 41% of our reading went to the TNG land. Look at that. We've got a decent amount of TOS, which I was surprised. I guess I didn't realize that I had read that much, but 19% was TOS, followed by 11% at Voyager and 5.6 of DS9. Then, of course, we've got all these little pieces of the pie here coming in, and New Frontiers actually takes up 4.3, kind of being the next biggest section of Trek books that we have read. I know a lot of you guys, you're not pie chart people, you're bar graph people, so let's get you your bar graph. Here's your bar graph. As you can see, the TNG numbers are just sky high. They're just sky high. So this coming up reading, we are going to attempt to level those numbers out a little bit, I think. And I think that's a fine goal. We will definitely be some of these numbers, they're just not going to come up, obviously. There's not that many Strange New Worlds books, right? And, but we can definitely bring the New Frontiers numbers up for sure. Enterprise numbers are abysmal. We have got to get some Enterprise books into the rotation, so we are definitely looking for suggestions there. Um, but definitely, we will be diving into more Deep Space Nine. I got a great recommendation for a Deep Space Nine book, too, and I don't have the darn thing, of course. So we'll be picking up some more Deep Space Nine. That is kind of the one series I'm also kind of lacking in. I would say the most as well, too, would be the Deep Space Nine. So we'll be getting into that for sure, and we'll definitely be slowing down on the TNG stuff. We hit our initial goal. We hit our 50, the 1 through 50 talked about on the channel. So now we can kind of slow down on that and start picking up and evening those numbers out, getting into some stories from some different authors, some different stuff that we've not gotten into before. So we're definitely looking forward to that, and also definitely looking forward to starting something new, right? So this is like a thing that I started it and I finished it, and it probably doesn't mean anything to anyone else and probably won't ever, but it's like, it's 5 years of my reading life, and I wrote it down. I wrote down every single one here, and I made some dumb little comment on everything. Some of it very hard to read, some of it doesn't make any sense, and if my ancestors someday come across this book and are looking through it, they might think I'm a madman. But then they can watch the videos too, right? The videos will still be there. Then they'll know that I'm a madman. Anyway, we've got to find the next one. We have a new journal. Discovery. We haven't read a Discovery book either. I do have a Discovery book. I have some Enterprise. But, I actually kind of got a path forward already here, and we'll show you guys what we're thinking there. But, hang on. We'll be right back. Here we go. This is the next one. Pristine and beautiful. Enterprise D. And look at that. The inside is even like the, kind of the same format, right? And the pages as well too. So very excited to start fresh with a new book, new journal. But what will be the first to grace that? We had 3 great suggestions come in yesterday, and I grabbed them out and I placed them somewhere where I can handily reach them and show you all. And now they're gone. Oh boy, what have I done? 1 second here. Alright. Okay. Anyway, here's what we're going to be looking at. In the future, next couple of weeks here, first off, we are going to do this one. This is I think the newest Star Trek release, Asylum by Una McCormack. I've enjoyed Una McCormack's work before. It would be a great read now, too, because we are in Strange New World season. So this will be fun to read, fun to talk about, and another big, beautiful hardcover to get into. Oh, so nice. So we'll be getting into that next. And then after that, straight into some Voyager. We're going to read Pathways, which was recommended by one of you guys out there. And then there was a TNG recommendation and a Deep Space Nine recommendation, and we're going to be getting into both of those too. So, and then also, as we approach the spooky time of the year, we're going to want to start thinking about scary books to read. And I am going to do a Star Trek break this year. So, what is the best scary book? Doesn't have to be a Star Trek book, because I want to get into something really creepy this year, right? And also looking for good recommendations for kind of creepy Star Trek books as we get into that season. But anyway, we're going to let you go. We got a get started on this book, get started taking some new notes in this book, and we are going to find a spot on the shelf to retire this bad boy right here until we need to reference it. So, anyway, thanks for hanging out and listening to me talk about my book that I wrote about books. As always, it's been fun. Live long and prosper, my friends. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.